anybody has any questions, comments, and answers are especially welcome. Now is the time. Thank you very much. Yes, they're in the back.
Yes, there is this view that if there is one thing we can do, all of us, like going to home today, starting today, it is switching to the plant-based diet.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some research which shows that if we do that, that is equal to taking all the trucks and all the cars of the planet in terms of the global warming effect that you're talking about. I also remember talking to a doctor who wrote a book, How Not to Die. It's a New York bestseller for the last 22 months. He said that I don't mind dying, I just don't want to be the leading cause of it, which is an improvisation sort of thing that we heard. What is your take on saving the planet by just doing that simple thing?
Yeah, so switching to a plant-based diet. Everybody goes vegan, right?
Something like that.
And a couple of things. I'm a huge fan of not driving 200 species to extinction every day, which is what we're doing now. That's a result of civilization. It's a result of our choices like eating meat. On the other hand, veganism requires enormous production of grains, the defining element of every civilization. And veganism, I think, is a privilege for people in cities. I don't know any people who live in rural areas who can pursue veganism, and certainly not in third world countries where I live, such as where I live. So I think that we should pursue right action and not be attached to the outcome. I eat very, very low on the, quote, food chain. But I'm not a vegan. And I haven't been for a long time. Do I think if everybody went vegan we could fix this? No, I don't. I think we're locked into already because of decisions made a long time ago. A global average temperature rise too high to support humans in the very near future. Does that mean we should give up on trying something that is actually rational and makes sense? No, of course not. So, I don't know what right action means for you or for you or for you on a daily basis. I barely can figure out what it means for me. Does it mean I don't fly anymore, which is the Kevin Anderson approach, the climate scientist in England? Not for me, because I recognize if everybody stopped flying, if everybody actually followed my lead, then we're dead even sooner. What to do?
The interesting argument, I like the way you put it. However, if you look at the facts about the grains, 50 to 80% of grains that we grow, we are only talking about corn and soybean, is fed to the animals.
Right.
For meat. So if
Right.
we take that paradigm off, then we don't have to grow that much food for humans. That was the point I was trying to get.
Right, okay. Right.
Just a side note, plant-based diets would be non-vegan.
Sure.
You see, Coke is a vegan drink, but that's not what we're talking about.
Okay. You're right. I remember reading one of John Robbins' books, and he's a vegan, the son and nephew of Baskin and Robbins, who, forsaking the family fortune, said, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And he doesn't even eat honey because of the whole locking up the bees thing. And early in his career, he was being interviewed on a radio station in the southern United States, right, like in the deep south. And this guy called into the show and said, so let me get this straight. You don't eat meat. And John Robbins says, yeah, that's right. And the guy kept asking him, just kept persisting, kept saying the same thing in various ways. So you don't even eat meat of any kind? And John Robbins is thinking, I don't even eat honey. What is this guy getting at? And finally the guy says, wait a minute, you mean to tell me you don't even eat chicken? Because there's this culture in the South that's like flossing your teeth at the end of the day. It's just what you do. So I bring that up because we can do what we think is right, but we don't have a lot of control over what other people do. If we could get everybody on board, if we could create a fascist government, oh wait, too late, we're already there. and that fascist government made us eat certain things, then would we have a chance of saving the planet? No. We might save a few more species for a little longer, and that would be an awesome thing. But we're in the midst of the sixth mass extinction on planet Earth.
Okay. Can I interject one thing?
Please.
Another story. When my daughters became vegetarians, they were talking to my father about it, and my father said, "Does bacon count?"
Does bacon count? That reminds me, like everything does, of a Louis C.K. clip, right? And basically, bacon justifies civilization for Louis C.K. Because it's amazing. It's the dessert of meats. Come on. We can do what we think is right, and I think that's a brilliant idea. But I don't think we can be attached to the outcome, or it's going to drive us crazy. That reminds me, I don't watch very many movies, more lately than ever before in my life. But then, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit what kind of movies I watch. But I was watching Fury Road, the latest Mad Max movie, and the protagonist turns to a woman who's talking about hope, and he says, "Hope is a mistake. If you can't fix what's broken, it'll drive you crazy." That's where we are. We can't fix what's broken. We can do all the things we believe are right, and we still can't fix what's broken. If you can't fix what's broken, it'll drive you crazy, unless you just admit that you can't fix what's broken. If we admit that this is a predicament and it's beyond our control, and we accept that, and we still live with urgency every single day, and we still do what we believe is right in our own hearts, then I think we will suffer a lot less than we otherwise would. And that's all I'm trying to say. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. Thank you for the question to finally point me in the direction that I've been trying to head for the last 20 years of my life.
I agree with you 100% regarding not to be attached with the outcomes. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches. So I salute you for your...
Yeah, and it took me a long time to get there. You know, it's sort of a fundamental tenet of Buddhist philosophy is to not be attached to the outcomes, to do right action, to pursue right action along with those other 7 things in the Eightfold Way. And I'm a huge fan. But if you're attached to the outcome, you're going to be one miserable human being. And I was attached to the outcome for a long time. For 21 years on university campuses, I taught to my students that there's too many people on the planet, and you should just stop that. You should... Do you know what it's like to try to overcome evolution? It didn't go well. All my students, every class I ever taught, we got to stop making so many people. And when I started with this whole thing, there were half as many people as there are now. So that worked great. You can tell I had a profound influence. I don't know any of my students who didn't have kids. If I was attached to that outcome, I wouldn't be a very happy person. You think I'm Mr. Doom and Gloom now. Imagine if I thought about all those babies that I didn't stop somehow.
Being attached to the outcome also helps your 3 commandments. Remain calm, become calm, and excellent.
Right. Not be attached to the outcome. It's all about non-attachment. I wish I'd have thought of it.
So are there any other questions?
Right here.
In the beginning, you had the cartoon there where it said, "I should have bought more crap." That's something that none of us say on our deathbed. Another thing we don't say on our deathbed is, "I should have spent more time at the office."
Right. And it's sort of a similar thing. I should have bought more crap. I should have spent more time at the office. I should have worked more. No, I think, and I'm not dead yet, so maybe I'm just projecting. But I think most people, when they're in their final days and their final hours, they're not thinking, I should have spent more time in the office, rather than thinking, I should have spent more time with the people I love. So, and of course, all of us, at some level, are on the treadmill, right? We're part of this whole thing. We're just running along to try to keep up, to go faster, to make enough money to buy the groceries, to blah, blah, blah. And like I said, if we step off the treadmill, if everybody steps off the treadmill, we're dead even faster, right? So at some level, I'm not suggesting that people stop going to work. I am suggesting that instead of working 60 hours a week every week, maybe you work 55 and spend those other 5 hours one night a week. 1 hour per weeknight with your kids, with your grandkids, with the people in your life that you actually love. Yes, we all have to do these things. I still floss my teeth. I do. I still work. Some people don't recognize it as work. Almost everybody still has to make money in one way or another, even if it means just filling out forms so you can get unemployment compensation. So I'm not suggesting that we walk away from all that. I'm suggesting we be more thoughtful about how we pursue our daily lives. That there are more important things than that asshole who cut you off in traffic. To get all enraged about that is to worry about nothing, which is really what we do. Charles Bukowski wrote a poem about that. We get all worked up about nothing. We eat ourselves alive about these little insignificant things. My best response, I used to get worked up when people cut me off in traffic. Really? I'm like the worst driver in the history of the planet, by the way. For me to get upset about the way people drive is insane. And now when somebody cuts me off in traffic, I go, that's the best thing about near-term human extinction. People like that die too. And it's probably kind of a mean thing to say. But even the rich sociopaths who are going to be in their bunkers fighting over the last can of peaches, they're going to die too. Isn't that great? No, it's not great. It's not great. It's a terrible way to think. But we're all in this together. We're not all in the bunkers together. It's a big club, as George Carlin used to say, and you ain't in it. But otherwise, we're all in this together. Rich, poor, Caucasians, people of color, men, women, children, of all sizes and ages. We're all in this together. Let's act like we're all in this together. Let's act like everybody's going to die. The only thing better than having an expiration date on your heel would be having an expiration date on your forehead. And you could never see it. But everybody else could. Right? And so they go up and they shake your hand and it says 3 days and they're like, whoa, we're not going to get too close to this guy. Or if it says 1 second, you're like, run! I want to be in the lightning when it hits there. But it'd be really cool if we knew when other people died. I think that's way more important than your birthday. We celebrate our birthdays. I'd like to know when my death day is. When do I start living with urgency? Now? When do I stop acting as if someday will come? Now? And if I'm wrong, if all the evidence I present is wacky, crazy, climate scientists are just making this shit up to scare people, for what reason I don't know, if all that is wrong, if the incredibly conservative referee journal process produces information that is stupid, then I still think remaining calm and pursuing excellence and pursuing love, that's really nothing could go wrong with that. I don't think those are crazy ideas regardless. Even if you still go to work and you work your 40 or your 45 or your 50 hours a week. I still don't think that's crazy. Maybe that makes it crazy. Who would know?
We had a question here, I think, a comment.
I was trying, I was reflecting on what he was just saying. But I was wondering if you would, for the audience's interest, address what we talked about in the foyer a little bit earlier about the gentleman who says, no need to worry, the main thing you need to worry about is global cooling. And he's got huge chops. Very accomplished gentleman, no doubt.
Yeah, there's all kinds of people out there saying all kinds of things.
This has to do with the solar minimum or whatever.
Yeah. I know. I'm just trying to decide whether I should be an asshole or not.
Hey, everybody
It's
has
like-
one, man.
I saw this cartoon once, and it's like the daily decision, right? And one button is don't be a dick. And the other one is like the red button. I really wish the evidence indicated we were in the midst of a global cooling catastrophe. And I hear all the time, climate scientists used to say in the 1970s that we're headed for global cooling. And about 20% of them did. About 20% of people studying climate change in the 1970s thought we were headed for another ice age. But the other 80% said we weren't, that we needed to be worried about warming instead. I would love to think we're headed for a cooling event. I would love to see some evidence, some actual evidence, indicating we're heading that way as a result of solar minimum, but I don't see it. The temperature of the sun has actually cooled since the early 1980s, but the planet has warmed since then. We would have no problem with cold. Ice ages are cake. We are Homo calidus. We know about fire. Fire, good. We got that. We have this technology. Clothes, fire, cooling would be awesome. I just don't see us headed that way. The evidence doesn't support that interpretation for me. But I really don't care what you believe. I'm not attached to the outcome. You can believe whatever you want. You can believe in fairies. I have friends who believe in fairies. They really do. They have a sign at their door that says, "Don't piss off the fairies." And they actually believe in. I don't care. That doesn't hurt me. You don't have to believe what I say. That doesn't hurt me. I'm not attached to the outcome. I still think that living with urgency and treating the people around you decently as you want to be treated and all that other crap I said when I was getting all spiritual on you, I still think that's good stuff. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the Blue Ocean event and what you see transpiring shortly thereafter?
You know, the projections regarding an ice-free Arctic beginning in May of this year indicated that we were headed for a Blue Ocean event, an ice-free Arctic Ocean, as early as July. And then when we got into July, it looked like we were headed there in August. Then we got to August, it looks like it's going to happen next week. And then bam, the refreeze started 2 weeks earlier than usual, and we dodged another bullet. How long? How long? We don't know. You know, I can't imagine we avoid it next year, but that's what I said this year. Which is why people call me crazy, because I think all these things that are catastrophic, that encourage me to live with urgency. And to pursue all those other things I think are important too, like justice. I'm a huge fan of justice. My living with urgency, my pursuing life fully every day, doesn't mean that when somebody libels and slanders me in the public sphere, that I just ignore that. I'm interested in justice too. Blue Ocean event, you know, we don't even know what that looks like, but there was a paper, and I'm not going to be able to come up with any of the relevant information about it. It was in the mainstream media, like in Salon or New Yorker or something like this. This is like a year or so ago, indicating that there are already about 20 self-reinforcing feedback loops in the Arctic alone. Things like diminishing ice mass from one year to the next, things like methane coming out, things like latent heat as a result of a darkening ice mass, and on the list goes. You know, we haven't had humans with an ice-free Arctic. I don't think we can have humans with an ice-free Arctic in the future because of what that means. the Arctic is not Vegas. What stays in the Arctic, what happens in the Arctic does not stay in the Arctic. It affects the entire planet. It's the planetary air conditioner. Without Arctic ice, we don't have this huge gradient between the Arctic and the equator that allows the jet stream to maintain some sense of normalcy. For the last 2 years, for the first time in human history, we've had jet streams from the northern and southern hemisphere crossing each other. That's not supposed to happen. So we have all this crazy stuff happening already because of the decreased temperature gradient between the Arctic and the equator. When that temperature gradient basically goes away because we don't have any ice there anymore, when the methane starts spewing out as indicated by these 2 research teams as being highly possible to occur at any time, I can't imagine that's going to turn out well. But again, we don't know. Humans have never experienced an ice-free Arctic. Maybe like Putin says, it'll just make things great in Russia. It'll just warm things up nicely. You know, the first refereed journal paper on the topic of global warming as a result of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was published in April of 1896, written by Svante Arrhenius, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, not for this work, for different work. And Arrhenius, who lived in one of the Scandinavian countries, I don't remember which one. What's that?
I think it was Sweden.
Sweden, okay. So he lived in Sweden. He predicted a 1 degree Celsius global average temperature rise by the year 2000. And he missed that 104 years in advance by less than 1/4 of a degree. So that's not bad, really. And he thought it would be great because he lived in Sweden and he was a chemist and he didn't understand biology and ecology. So he thought that would be like just turning up the air conditioner a notch or 2 and we feel so much better. It'll be nice in Sweden when it's 1 degree warmer. But as it turns out, there are all these things like habitat involved and knock-on effects on what happens with the plankton and the terrestrial plants that influence our lives too. So I don't think it's going to be awesome when it warms up in the Arctic, but we don't know because it hasn't happened yet. It's like there's so much of this we don't know. Yeah?
What's your take on the sustainable degrowth movement?
Which button?
I think oh, Jesus. Edward Abbey said, civilization, like an airplane in flight, remains aloft only as it is moving forward. Civilization, like an airplane in flight, remains aloft only as it is moving forward. Replace moving forward with growing. Civilizations don't grow or die. They grow and die. Degrowth, I can't imagine we could have anything resembling this set of living arrangements if there were degrowth, if there were negative growth. Negative growth. Get on before you get on. I think, and there's all kinds of evidence to support this view, that we cannot have steadily decreasing human population and maintain this set of living arrangements. I don't think degrowth is a possibility. I thought it was a great idea 20 years ago. You know, Ted Reese in British Columbia was promoting the idea 20 years ago, and I thought, yeah, that's awesome. And that was before I understood that sustainability is a myth, and degrowth makes about as much sense as infinite growth on a finite planet. I just don't see that working. But I've been wrong so many times. If you want a full accounting, you can look on YouTube for comments about Guy McPherson. It's all there. So I'm a big fan of having fewer people on the planet and somehow getting there in a way that isn't catastrophic, that doesn't produce enormous upheaval for those of us who are here. by which I mean killing us all.
Are you talking about population degrowth or economic degrowth?
Both. They're completely connected. They're completely interrelated.
I mean, talking about like personal accountability.
Yeah, I know. Personal accountability would be awesome. When does that start? You know, the whole reason we have civilizations is that we exceeded Dunbar's number. We exceeded 100 or 200 people in a group. And then not everybody can keep track of everybody, so nobody becomes a guy. It's one or two people. It's there. Sociopathy, psychopathy is within us. In any group of a couple hundred people, it's going to be there. And if we can keep track of all those people, it gets reined in, or those people just get banished. Right? They either get controlled or they get thrown out of the tribe, and so then they almost certainly die. But when we get to be more than 200 people, more than 2,000 people, then nobody can keep track. And then there's free riders. Free riders, people that are able to take advantage, or even better, charismatic people who not only take advantage, but rise to the top by convincing you that I'm better than you and making the important decisions. And so I get to control the food and therefore the people. I have no idea why I even started down that rant. But you know, we all are afflicted with badness. We all have it within us. And some people are really good at it and really charismatic and convincing about it. And if there's so many people that we can't keep track, then those people rise to the top. They become president of the United States. And I'm not just talking about the current version, I'm talking about every version. They become president of the university. They become the people in charge. And they benefit greatly. And they start to control things like food supply. And it's utter catastrophe. So I think when we gave up the hunter-gatherer existence and started getting larger than tribes or bands and started storing the food, at that point it was game over. It was just a matter of time before we developed the kind of technology that I demonstrated in the first slide from the refereed journal literature, that at some point we developed sufficient technology, sufficient enough to cause our own extinction. That's basically Fermi's paradox from 1950, and 67 years later, the refereed journal literature, consistent with its conservative nature, finally comes to grips with reality. Fermi said, the reason we don't see a bunch of aliens landing on the planet and hanging out at parties, hey, how you doing? I'm from Mars. The reason we don't see that is because by the time people develop sufficient technology for interstellar travel, they have also developed sufficient technology to kill themselves, so they do.
Okay, maybe I can interject here that what you're now talking about will be discussed at great length in our next lecture, which I am going to give next February.
I want to stop right there. Can I stop?
Yeah.
I'm just going to hand you the microphone. I'm just going to walk away.
What?
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
If you like this lecture, and would like to help me support it, so that I'm not the only supporter, you might think about contributing. It's not necessary. You can only do it. You only need to do it if you want to. And if you want to, you can either go to the Woodbury University website, and there'll be instructions about how to contribute to the Schultz Awareness Lectures. Alternatively, you can write a check and send it to the University Office of Advancement, and in the note put, this is for the Schultz Awareness Lectures. I'm not asking you to do this or begging you to do this. I'm saying do this only if you feel like it. So, please join me in thanking Professor McPherson.
I forgot something. I forgot something.
Okay.
I forgot something, and I think it must be important, which is probably why I forgot it. I brought with me my latest book, which is a novel called Ms. Ladybug and Mr. Honeybee, A Love Story at the End of Time. And it's co-authored by my partner, Pauline Schneider. And if you want a copy, we will sign one for you for $15 a piece, which is way less than you can get them from the publisher, since the publisher went out of business. And even before, it costs $20 plus shipping and handling, like $1 million. Anyway, so we'll be hanging around afterwards, and I'll hang around for as long as they'll let me to talk with each of you individually if you're so inclined. So thanks again, Bob, and thanks to all of you for coming.